this was an interesting challenge.
I'm not usually allowed to do this at home, I'm sure you'll protect. One of the reasons that we wanted to start here is that you'll hear the word impunity in human rights service. And it means that there is a challenge that no person, because of power, whether it comes from state office or the power of weaponry, should be on the wall. So it is seen as a challenge to impunity. The structures that we're talking about that have evolved since World War II are designed to challenge impunity. But justice means nothing if there are no trials. And trials mean nothing if no one will defend the accused. So one of the things we wanted to do was to jar you a little bit at the beginning of a conversation that's going to be primarily about victims, and say the notion of trial is essential. Until a month before Nuremberg, the British War Cabinet wanted to line up the leading Nazis and shoot Trump. In the fall, before that May, Soviet Secretary Morgenthau had persuaded Roosevelt that about 5,000 Germans should just be shot. So it wasn't something that we could historically take for granted at trial. But the notion of trial is essential, because if we execute people or imprison them because they can be accused, then we, in turn, have violated human rights. So we wanted to make sure that you understood there's another side.
So what is this notion of impunity? Well, in Sierra Leone, you'll hear references in the opening statement of the prosecution to the beast of impunity. So we didn't want you to confront the notion of impunity without some background. Here on the left, we're standing before the newly constructed, only finished a week before we arrived in Sierra Leone to commence the RUF trials. Those opening statements, well, we had to fight with our own defense team, lawyers from all around the world, to even give an opening statement, because the legal traditions in other parts of the world are that the defense doesn't give an opening statement. The prosecution may talk for weeks, months, and in these cases years, without ever hearing the point of view from the defense. So we're going to show you a snippet of what life is like in an international criminal tribunal. And again, love, just because it's Valentine's Day. You'll see someone who's giving the opening statement for Mars Cologne. But what you don't see is how hard this work is. The night before, we were pouring through transcripts, up all night, because we knew that we were embarking on a historic moment and giving an opening statement in a criminal tribunal. Government soldiers and Janjaweed militia attacked us. Some of the men arrived in trucks with guns mounted on the roof. The Janjaweed came on horseback. As the soldiers and Janjaweed militia entered our village, they started shooting. The men on horseback carried torches and set the houses on fire. My house was burned to the ground. As people fled from their burning houses and ran for their lives, they were shot at randomly. No one was safe, not men, women, or even children. Over 50 people from our village were brutally murdered. This is the continuation of that application that we opened with. This is a Darfurian woman, ZK, and she's talking about the attack in her village by the Janjaweed. ZK has been recognized as a victim who can tell her story through documents and through us as her legal representatives if they ever bring the accused from Sudan to be in Dadaab at the International Criminal Court for trial.
This is we don't expect you to read the principal strategy. This is just an excerpt from the warrant against Mr. Bashir, who is the principal accused in the Darfur. He is the president of the Sudan. The principal charge against him is genocide. Genocide is killing, with an intent to destroy destroy and hold apart a racial, national, religious, or ethnic. In this case, primarily the Fur, the Mesolith, and the Zagala. The Zagala are especially like people, there are only about 500,000 of them in the world, and they have no written language. So to drive them from their ancestral homes, where they've lived thousands of years, is literally to destroy them. There are Zagala in Minnesota, Maine, and other places in the United States, throughout East Africa, and part of the challenge that they face, of course, is that the land that they once occupied has now been given to others. Similarly with the Mesolith and the Fur. One day, one time, I'm working with some folks in Philadelphia. There was a little patch of green, no more than 6 by 10. And one day we took a break and we came outside, and several of our furry men were staring at that little patch of green. I said, "What's going on with that patch of green?" They said, "Well, in Philadelphia, this is an old reminder of Philadelphia. These people were herdsmen all their lives, and suddenly, in the dark of night, attacked by modern military forces accompanied by the judge. And the question is, what, if anything, is the remedy? Especially when the purpose of this is that Bashir runs a kleptocracy that plays on racial and ethnic hatreds and tensions within Sudan. And his purpose has been to rid the Darfur of the Mesolith, Zagala, and the Fur. And so he's charged with, is that a message? And the only point was to see these are the scores of villages, keeping track of this, just the logistics of keeping track of where the attacks took place. So we're talking to people who left their homes at dark at night with no documents, frequently traveled through 5 to 6 countries, have to recount the story, and we have to find a way to squeeze it into the parameters of the definitions that exist before us. And these are people who, by the way, we've been in poor countries often. And invariably, when you're in poor countries and there's a disparity between American and local folks becomes apparent, people ask people stuff, small things. It's pretty tough if you don't do it. 6 years of working with the Darfur. Not one has ever asked for it. And these are people who are selling flowers in New York, cleaning toilets at hotels. And when you ask them why, their answer is simple. Because they put themselves at risk from one of the most vicious regimes in the world. The government of Sudan has one of the most effective security services in the world. Outside of the United States and Israel, only South Africa and Egypt have more effective security services. And you say, why did you do it? And I say, who wants that?
And that's why we take a lot of care in protecting the identity of our clients. Many of the witnesses who have served as intermediaries between us and our clients have been killed. They've been killed in Uganda. They've been killed in Eastern Chad. They've even been killed in Europe. So we go to great lengths in keeping their identity secret. And you might want to ask, why do they need lawyers if they're victims? Why do they need lawyers to bring these applications to the court for consideration by the tribunal to see if these people can actually participate in a case? Well, for instance, 4 of our clients are recognized in the case against the president of Sudan, Bashir. But we had to show that they were victims of these particular attacks that are set forth in the Bashir arrest warrant. Now that is not easily done. The International Criminal Court has protocols and they're very, very strict. So one slip up by a victim as to a date or a location or even their date of birth can defeat their opportunity to be a recognized victim in a